Christmas is one of the most celebrated dates in the world, but also one of the most misunderstood. Every year, people repeat symbols, traditions, and ready-made phrases, without realizing that the central event of this story carries an extremely specific spiritual pattern. When heaven decided to intervene in human history, it did not choose the centers of power. It did not choose palaces. It did not choose religious leaders, nor the most respected men in society. Heaven spoke to the forgotten, and this choice was not random. It was intentional, strategic, and deeply revealing. Before any angel appeared, before any star shone, the setting was already defined. God would act outside the system. Here is the first point that almost no one notices. God does not reveal his greatest plans where there is noise, but where there is silence. Not where there is prominence, but where there is attention. And if this was true at the first Christmas, why would it be different today? Pause for a moment and think, how many times have you felt invisible, out of place, as if you were living on the margins while others were being celebrated? This feeling, which many try to erase, may be exactly the environment where God speaks the most. Christmas does not begin with visible glory. It begins with anonymity, and that changes everything. Before continuing, if this message has already spoken to you in some way, subscribe to the channel and like this video. This helps take this content to other people who also feel forgotten, but called by God. While Jerusalem slept, while the temple remained silent, while leaders followed their religious routines, a distant field became the stage of the greatest spiritual revelation in history. Shepherds were awake. This detail is fundamental. They were not looking for signs. They were not waiting for angels. They were not trying to prove anything. They were simply taking care of what had been entrusted to them. It is here that a pattern emerges that repeats throughout the entire Bible. God speaks to those who remain faithful in the ordinary. The shepherds were considered impure, socially irrelevant, spiritually ignored. Even so, they were the ones who heard heaven open. It was not because they were special in the eyes of the world, but because they were attentive when no one else was. This is the first great truth about the chosen ones. They are rarely recognized ahead of time, but they are almost always vigilant when the majority is distracted. Christmas reveals that attention precedes revelation, and this creates an uncomfortable contrast. Many attended the temple, but few heard God. Many had religious knowledge, but few had spiritual experience. Silence. This truth demands reflection because it forces us to ask, are we too busy to hear heaven? Mary enters this story as the personification of the unlikely, young, simple, without status, without a social voice, living in a despised region. Nothing about her indicated that she would be chosen to carry the greatest spiritual purpose of humanity, and that is exactly why she was chosen. God was not looking for someone impressive, he was looking for someone available. Mary does not understand everything, does not control the future, does not have guarantees. She has only one response: submission. This is another trait of the chosen ones. They do not have all the answers, but they have a willingness to obey. The world teaches that being chosen is linked to merit. God teaches that being chosen is linked to surrender. And this creates a direct clash with the human mindset. Christmas forces us to face this reality. God entrusts his greatest plans to people whom the world would never choose. And here a silent micro-hook emerges. If God chose Mary, whom might he be trying to use today who also feels too small? Joseph represents another essential aspect of the pattern of the chosen ones: obedience in silence. He does not receive applause, he does not deliver speeches, he does not occupy the center of the narrative. He simply does what needs to be done. He protects, he flees, he provides, he remains. Many times, being chosen does not mean being seen, but being faithful when no one is watching. Joseph accepts to carry a burden he did not cause, faces judgments he does not deserve, and continues obeying even without understanding the complete plan. This type of obedience is rarely celebrated, but it sustains eternal purposes. Christmas teaches that there are people God uses publicly and others he uses silently. Both are essential. The contrast is clear. The world values those who appear. God values those who sustain. The Magi emerge as a powerful counterpoint. They did not belong to the religious system, but they discerned a sign that many ignored. They observed, they studied, they waited. When they understood, they moved. The chosen ones are not only sensitive, they are spiritually disciplined. They walk when others hesitate. They advance when others settle. Christmas reveals that revelation requires movement. And here another silent question arises. How many people want clarity without being willing to walk? The pattern repeats throughout all of Scripture. Moses considered himself incapable. Gideon hid himself. David was forgotten in the field. Jeremiah felt too young. God has always chosen people who did not see themselves as ready, because the strength of the calling is not in the chosen one, but in the one who chooses. Christmas only makes this visible. It proves that God builds his plans far from the spotlight, in anonymity, in daily faithfulness. If you feel that you are not ready yet, perhaps that is not an obstacle, but exactly the point where God begins. The chosen ones almost always carry a feeling of displacement. They do not fit completely. They do not feel that they belong. They do not find total satisfaction in the systems of the world. This is not a spiritual failure. It is separation. Jesus was born outside, lived outside, and died outside. Christmas makes it clear that displacement is part of the process. Before using, God separates. Before revealing, he forms. Silence is not abandonment. It is preparation. That is why not everyone understands Christmas. Many celebrate, few discern. Christmas confronts the human ego because it shows that God does not need status, influence, or approval to act. He still speaks to the forgotten. He still moves in the unlikely. He still calls ordinary people for eternal purposes. There is a reason why the feeling of displacement never fully goes away for those who are chosen. It is because they were never meant to settle where they do not belong. The discomfort you feel is not accidental. It is not a flaw in your personality, nor a weakness in your faith. It is a signal that your identity does not originate from the systems around you. Chosen ones often try to silence this tension, to adapt, to blend in, to become acceptable, but every attempt to fully belong feels incomplete. Something inside resists. That resistance is not rebellion. It is alignment. Alignment with a calling that has not yet fully unfolded. This is why silence becomes such a recurring theme in the lives of the chosen. Silence strips away false identities. Silence removes applause. Silence exposes motives. When everything external quiets down, what remains is who you truly are, and that process is uncomfortable. Many interpret silence as rejection, but in the spiritual pattern revealed at Christmas, silence is not absence, it is construction. God often builds in quiet places because noise interferes with formation. Before public clarity comes private refinement. Before revelation comes separation. And before purpose comes preparation. Think about this pattern carefully. Jesus was not introduced on a stage. He was not presented to the world with ceremony. He entered history quietly, hidden, vulnerable, dependent. And that entrance alone confronts human expectations. We are taught that significance requires visibility. God demonstrates that significance often begins invisibly. That truth alone challenges the ego. Because if God works most powerfully where there is no recognition, then human pride has nothing to attach itself to. This is why Christmas divides people into two groups, those who celebrate and those who discern. Celebration focuses on symbols. Discernment searches for patterns. Celebration enjoys the atmosphere. Discernment listens for meaning. Many love the idea of Christmas. Few understand its implications, because once you understand what Christmas truly reveals, you can no longer measure your life by worldly standards. You can no longer define success the same way. You can no longer chase validation without feeling an internal contradiction. Here is the uncomfortable truth. God does not need your visibility to use you. He does not need your approval, your influence, your platform, or your reputation. He needs your availability. And availability is rarely developed in comfort. It is shaped in obscurity, in waiting seasons, in moments when it feels like nothing is happening. Those moments are not wasted. They are instructional. They teach endurance. They teach discernment. They teach humility. They teach you how to hear God without external confirmation. This is why chosen ones often feel out of sync with the pace of the world. The world rushes. God forms. The world demands immediacy. God values maturity. The world rewards performance. God honors obedience. These two value systems cannot coexist peacefully. Eventually, a choice must be made. And many feel that tension long before they understand it. They feel restless, dissatisfied, unfulfilled, not because something is missing, but because something is being prepared. If you feel like your life has been marked by delays, detours, or seasons of apparent stagnation, this is not random. God often delays exposure to protect what He is forming. Premature visibility can damage immature purpose. That is why many of the chosen experience prolonged hidden seasons. These seasons refine motives. They answer a critical question. If no one ever applauds, will you still obey? If no one affirms, will you still remain faithful? If no one understands, will you still listen? Christmas answers that question clearly. The shepherds were not rewarded with status. Mary was not rewarded with comfort. Joseph was not rewarded with recognition. The Magi were not rewarded with certainty. What they received was alignment, and alignment is far more valuable than approval, because approval fades. Alignment endures. And here another quiet realization emerges. Being chosen does not exempt you from struggle. It often intensifies it. Because the process of formation requires pressure. Pressure reveals structure. Pressure exposes weakness. Pressure strengthens foundations. Without pressure, purpose remains theoretical. With pressure, it becomes embodied. This is why many chosen ones struggle internally while appearing stable externally. They carry questions. They wrestle with doubt. They experience moments of exhaustion. And yet something keeps pulling them forward. Not ambition, not ego, but a deep internal awareness that there is more. That awareness is not anxiety, it is anticipation. Anticipation for something that has not yet arrived, but is already active beneath the surface. This is also why comparison is so dangerous for the chosen. When you compare your hidden season to someone else's visible season, discouragement grows. But comparison ignores context. You do not know what God is forming in silence. You do not know what He is restraining for protection. You do not know what weight your calling will carry. And weight determines timing. Heavier purposes require deeper roots. Deeper roots take longer to grow. Christmas quietly teaches this truth. God's timeline is not inefficient, it is intentional. Every delay serves a purpose. Every quiet season has a function. Every feeling of displacement carries information. The problem is not that you feel out of place. The problem would be if you didn't. So when you feel forgotten, ask a different question. Not why me, but what is being formed in me. When you feel unseen, resist the urge to force visibility. When you feel overlooked, resist the temptation to self-promote. Because the same God who revealed Himself to shepherds in a field still reveals Himself to the attentive in quiet places. And this brings us to the final realization. Christmas is not a nostalgic story meant to be admired from a distance. It is a diagnostic. It reveals how God operates. It exposes what he values. It clarifies who he chooses. And once you see the pattern, you begin to recognize it in your own life. God still calls unlikely people. He still works outside systems. He still bypasses noise and responds to attention. He still entrusts eternal purposes to ordinary individuals who are willing to listen. And he is still speaking, not louder but deeper. If this message resonates with you, do not dismiss it as coincidence. Resonance is recognition. It means something inside you is responding to truth, and that response matters. Christmas is not merely a date on a calendar. It is a reminder of identity, a reminder that you are not behind. You are being prepared, a reminder that silence is not abandonment. It is alignment. So if you feel displaced, unseen or forgotten, consider this carefully. Perhaps it is not rejection. Perhaps it is preparation. And if you are willing to remain attentive, even in silence, you may discover that heaven is closer than you think. If you believe that God still speaks to those who listen, let that belief become action. Stay attentive, stay faithful, stay available. Because when heaven chooses to speak, it often does so quietly, and only those who are listening will hear. If this message spoke to you, do not ignore it. Christmas is not just a date on the calendar, it is an annual reminder of identity. God continues to call unlikely people in unlikely places to fulfill purposes that the world does not understand. If you feel forgotten, displaced, or invisible, perhaps it is not rejection. Perhaps it is preparation. If you believe that God still speaks to the attentive, leave your like. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this today and write in the comments, "I am attentive." By doing this, you are not just interacting with the video. You are declaring that you are willing to listen when heaven speaks in silence.